People who've been gamers as long as I have found themselves concerned with things that they need never have been concerned about in their actual lives. And there has been times where I've been taking it rather seriously, focused on what I'm doing, as to say, you know what I mean? Like, I think I have now worked out how to avoid those surface-to-air missiles. Excuse me? Yeah. Been weighing up, say, missiles with radar tracks. It's like, seem to keep blowing me away if I haven't got like the right countermeasure to stop them. Might it be an idea to like utilise that this is a game, we're not affected by high G. You can't knock yourself out with a high G turn, it's a video game. Can't we just outmaneuver the missile and leave it a long way behind by time? Someone thought about it, weighed it up. It's like if you were to do something that would break your fucking neck, but this game will let you do it and drastically change direction. Can you not outmaneuver a kind of anti-air missile? And in the games you can do it, but in real life, no, they fucking thought of that. That's a bomb full of shrapnel. It's gonna hit you with something that will do you damage, and you could be a good distance away when it blows, and it still fucking have you, depending on how big it is. Because sometimes they send really big ones to make sure, but you're just gaming, you're up against a programming mechanic, aren't you? But it does get you to thinking about as to what's this really like. So as the years have gone on, the games have become more and more realistic, and as to where now you can go out and pay money and buy yourself some pedals and controls and need a fancy new desk so you can be pretending to be flying a plane with your VR fucking headset on. You'll never catch me with any of that stuff, but there are those who enjoy, and they'll be playing realistic war games. The realistic sims, the likes of which that the military be using in the simulators in this day and age, and it'd be a matter of, okay, so through this sort of silly side door of gaming, you find your way into becoming curious about the capabilities of certain weapon systems, because you're playing against them in a game and they're based on real equipment. Might not be all about, accuracy, but you will find yourself looking up like Abrams tanks, having used them in games, and coming to understand, okay, so what's this for, and how does this work? And then from that, people being dead interested in gaming have become dead interested in the history of war and battle, as to where, these war games aren't really realistic, are they? Why? So you're not playing Command and Conquer and have your fucking tank crews out there like, hey, we all need a shit now. We need to stop. And we could all do with a brew and a bit of lunch while weather holds out. We don't need to be fighting, the Brotherhood of Nod right now. Logistics. You get to weigh up as to where, your games you play. War economy. It's like, well, that's fantasy, isn't it? You've got what you've got. Once you've run out of ammunition, it's the end, isn't it? Unless you want to go. It's like the logistics of war make it so. The weapons they've got now are the cheapest way of doing it, and they've thought about it, and they've incorporated a load of different thinking. There's a long tradition of war. There's a long tradition of the military being just the best at geography. the Ordnance Survey map. That's the army map, Ordnance Survey. They have the maps we buy that everyone uses, but they might use digital ones now, but once it was always the Ordnance Survey map. Whose map's that? That's the army's map. They'll have been making maps as long as they've been going to war. Map making being one of the great technologies. It's like there are places as to where natural defence will give you an advantage. If you know that place is there and you've got a map that says, look, we can get up on this. From up on there, we can see all the way. Wouldn't that be a cracking place to put a couple of fucking guns? Now, to come to think of it, yes, it would. Cover. Cover from the ground. Why? Because... big part of it, so it's like I start to think about it like that, and then it's a matter of, well, what constitutes a war in this day and age? It's like, it's hard to say, really. Oh, hard to say. It's like, well, have you got any missiles left? No. Well, has your enemy got missiles left? Yes, but you lost. He's not going to fire his missiles, but you lost. Why won't he fire his missiles? Well, it'd be seen as passé, wouldn't it? You got no ammo left, and you've got you basically, it's like your ability to wage war has been destroyed. But you're saying you're still in a war, and all your international allies are saying they're going to give you aid. What does aid look like? Oh well, missiles. Well, that's the problem. They've got no missiles left. So when you give them aid, what are you going to do? Well, we'll give them some more missiles. And we'll train the troops. Okay, but missiles, shells. Yeah, we'll give them missiles and shells. And what are they going to do with them? Oh, they're going to spunk them. And then they'll be back saying, can we have some more missiles and shells? I'm like, no one gets to see the carnage, do they? It's just a matter of poof, poof, poof. I explained it. Anyone who's listening before it started, because I sometimes, you speak everything. You don't think maybe Putin will. You think maybe I'll make a good point and someone else will make the same point and it'd be a good point, and that'd be something that starts a conversation. And in our own little way, those of us who would have avoided the war that we're in, right? The reasons we have, right, to say this is what needs to happen. This, you lost, take the L, right? Negotiate. They're like, never, right? It's a good deal. Never. So from there, it's become just nonsense. There's no real. We don't hear any of the Russian side of it. They've managed to block the Russian voices on the English language internet. They've done a good job of it. There's very little. There's the people I subscribe to on YouTube who were reporting out of the. No, they've managed to get rid of them, or make it so that like to me who doesn't follow them so close I can't find them now. They're good at that. You only need to slip from your attention. They know it only needs to slip from your attention for about a week, and then the next one gets fessed up. So I'm like, do you know what it looks like, boys and girls? Nowadays, you think they're asking for guns and they're asking for gear for troops and body armour, and it's like they're not going to need any of that. They might need that to like defend themselves from things like attacks by like paratroopers, special forces attacks. Yeah, small arms, but it's like no. You're up against an enemy here who's done war before, and they will consider the control over a territory to be what they've got the ability to rain down death on. So there is no territory. You're fighting a war with missiles. I'm like, war looks like loads of missiles in the air. They're not nuclear, they're missiles. They're all the same. They could be nuclear missiles, but they're missiles. And you've got a lot of missiles get launched, and some of these missiles are like dumbfiring things that have been aimed, and other things have got specific missions, and other missiles are just there to destroy any other missiles they find on the way. Some of them are interceptors, and some of them are strike. Launched them all. Knowing there's going to be a... And it's like, okay, so the missiles will maybe meet in the sky or pass like ships that, cross like ships that pass in the night. But then when one missile gets nearer to this is like more localized, ostensible air defense, different kinds of air defense measures are then launched. Shorter range missiles. Coming down to it as to whether then the same defensive system, the nearer you get to the valuable thing, will be shooting at you with miniguns. Integrated same thing. It's like you can't get near that place without the right weapon targeting you. You're like, so what's the maximum range of an S-400 anti-missile, anti-air system? What's the furthest away it can fire? Oh, 80 miles. 80 miles. So it's like, if I've got, right, that system in my back garden, right, I haven't got a shed, otherwise it'd be in the shed. If I had that system in the shed and I could detect something that was in like Newcastle upon Tyne from here, I launch a missile at it. You're like, oh yeah. And might I destroy it? Probably not, but the guy's going to fuck off home. He will understand that there are limitations to our ability to track him. The missile will be on its way at a fair old speed, but he have a choice as to whether to fuck off or not. And he could probably, if he gets out of the range of our detection, escape. But we made him fuck off. Although there's a thing about missiles, anti-air missiles, whereas you got a real problem here. You've got missile tracking that's 50 miles away. And if you've got something like, these guys have got airwax in the air. They've got aerial radar. It's like if the ground radar loses our track and that thing can see us, the missile will still fucking hit us. It's like, that's what war is. Like, yes. And it's like at the beginning of that Ukraine war, Russia lost certain access to those capabilities, but still had all the analog capabilities built into the technology. But they had become dependent on some web-based resources. And they didn't know that they could have those disrupted, and they were disrupted. So in some regards, a weapon has been deployed on the Russians' command and control systems. So they've had to use their Cold War backups. Yeah, the internet got shut down. And then someone come along and put the Ukrainian internet back up, but not theirs. So it's like, yeah, they had their internet down. But they have solved the problem now. So it's like, okay, so when that big truck convoy came down from Russia, it's like, what was that? And it's like, well, it was mostly launchers and spur missiles. So I'm saying, when that convoy arrives there, they'll set up that air defense system, and everyone will then get the message that if you send something in the air, you're going to fucking lose it. And your backup is a long way away. So suddenly it's like, well, there's not going to be any foreign intervention. Why? We don't want to lose our air force. And then it's like, so Ukraine, what have Ukraine been, what have Ukraine got? It's like they've got the same air defense system as the Russians have got, just an older version of it without the extra long range missiles. What? So theirs is good? Yeah, it's identical. They just can't buy. They just cannot buy new ammunition from its manufacturer anymore. But loads of other countries that the Russians have sold the S-300 system to have been selling their weapons to the Ukraine. So the Ukraine has got an effective anti-air deterrent. So what does that mean? It means the Russians have stopped sending manned planes. They've took the planes off the battlefield because they're losing them. No point. So you've got a war, right, where it's too expensive for both sides to use air power, even though they've got lots of it. The Russians have anyway. Loads of it. They just don't want to have it just blown to smithereens for nothing. So what you got left? Rockets and missiles. So what's happened is, it looks to me as though it got established, or had been established, that basically Russia have been able to move their military. They'd redeployed. And the Ukrainians have taken what looks like a couple of armoured brigades, which, to press in this war, have been seen as like obsolete units when they were used at first, when the Russians actually just attempted to rush and encourage, thinking that the people would rise up in their favour and surrender, which didn't happen. There's been a lot of people ready. There's been almost, it's been, the place has been ready for war when the war started. So any notion of a blitzkrieg style or to roll in, because the Russians are not a tank army, so you don't expect a tank attack from them. But they did that. They rolled in like that. So the Russians just advance with tanks. They don't do tank warfare. They advance with tanks because it's like the tank will never be obsolete. It's like, why? It's like, because when they where they are where they are, and they take some fucking shifting. You need some special kit to blow it up. So if they ain't got that kit, this dominates. So it's like it's a defensive unit, like a patrol unit, but it's one they use to advance with, because the real secret of their power is their ability to strike with artillery and big guns from distance. They fall back on that, and they've always fallen back on that, and that is how the Russians fight a war. So what they do is they will smash the place to fucking pieces, as opposed to sending troops in to be ambushed, which is the right thing to do, but it doesn't care for what it might be hitting with its explosives. That's not part of its plan. And then going to what the place getting smashed to pieces become part of the cost of war with Russia. They'll smash the place up. The cost of war with Russia is they'll smash the place up. I knew that before the war started. Lots of others did as well. Like, they'll smash the place up with missiles and artillery. Yes, they will. So what's happened is now, it's like the rules of the game have been changed, and the definition of what this is, this war, has been changed again. So when the Ukrainian armies advanced into territory that's been abandoned, they're calling it a victory and saying they've taken all this ground when they've not faced any real opposition. So what that's done is, there's a thing about this where I read about it when they were exclusive. The Guardian were all over it immediately. Victories, they're rolling right through the place, talking to say it's as though the Russians have just disappeared. Are not interested in fighting us. So, well, you've turned up in force. It's like they've got deterrence against an army doing that. And if we were actually playing for keeps and it was a real war, and one side wanted to win, that Ukrainian advance gave Russia probably the greatest ever opportunity for the use of a battlefield nuclear weapon to kill them all. With actually an acceptable loss of life, if there can be such a thing, as to where they could have struck hard at that army with a nuke. Like, really hard at them. And they could also, they didn't have to go nuclear, they could have, like, you know, sent for the Blackjacks and with a load of cruise missiles from 100, 200 miles away. They didn't know. And then you've got it where your idiots at the UN and your trusses and the like are saying victories, 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 and the Russians know the truth, and they're like, you didn't fight against anyone, you took a lot of territory that we weren't expecting you to do something so stupid as to move in the open, because if we'd have been like there ready for you, and it wouldn't have taken much for us to be that, we could have wiped the floor with you and really done you some fucking harm, really hurt some of your guys. But because of it, you're taking the piss out of our willingness not to use our big weapons and calling it victory. So then you got Putin mouthing off like that, straight away like that. But they've framed it as, oh, he's a madman, he's threatening us. It's like, no, it's like you are taking the piss out of him by saying, go on, nuke us. And that's your strategy. Because these fucking idiots, right, they're so worried about how they may be remembered and their legacy. I wouldn't want to be the one who fired that weapon. And he obviously has got that pressure on him too. So if things don't go right for him, he could go down in history as one of the great fucking monsters. And it's like, well, that's not kind of true of the guy, is it really? So there's worse than him. But it's like you've put him in a position as to where nuke us off. They've basically said, nuke us off, fuck off. He's in an incredibly fucking poor position. It's just what cunts do is working. Backed into a corner. Nuke us then. We're in the open here. You can fucking hit us. Your doctrine of war, right, means you've actually developed an entire class of weapons. Both sides have. All sides have developed weapons where it's like nuclear artillery shell, small nuke, neutron bomb. They're to be done. It's like the right weapon here. What is it? Neutron bomb. What? Yeah, kill them all. But don't harm their equipment. It's like their electronics will be fried, but the guns will still fucking work. Or small arms, we can go and harvest the corpses of their army in a couple of weeks after neutron bombs effects have dissipated. They've got the weapons to do that. And it's like they're prisoners to him. Is there a mind in the world that's thinking, I should strike the Ukrainian army with a nuclear weapon? You bet your ass there is. So how long do you think he'll stand for that? And then it's like we've now decided that this army is about holding territory. Since when was that? What this war was about? When did that matter? It's like isn't it about destroying the invaders? No, it's now about how much territory we hold, as if we're going to dig some fucking trenches. So it's like, to my mind, since they okayed the war, right, because they should have negotiated with Russia, Treaty violation. It's a thing. An international treaty was enforced by Russia and they invaded. It's like, that's legal. Legal. And they're all screaming, there needs to be war crimes tribunals. As if it's murky as to what a war crime is, or what war even is. Really? It's like, if you knew the army was coming and you were living in a town or a city that knew that you saw the troops move around you, you'd get the fuck out of there, wouldn't you? And they do. There's no fucking letting rip with fucking guns on fucking kids playing in parks and things like that. It's like, you get the gist, there's something amiss. It's like, you go to war with Russia, that's what you do. You cause a fucking mass exodus. You'll turn your country into a bag of shit, destroy all its communities, and turn your fucking citizens into fucking criminal vagabonds that'll be a plague on the world. Why? Because they've been traumatised and they've lost everything, you fucking idiots. It's like you unleash a plague of fucking locusts. It's like you've created a load of desperate people. Well done. It's like, John, you can't say that. They're not bad people like that. And it's like, well, everybody's a bad person like that when they get the rug pulled. Everybody. Everybody has a fucking change when they get the rug pulled and they get traumatised and they get fucking herded and shipped off to other countries. And it's like, well, what the fuck do we do now? Where are my people? And then you wonder why they get up to fucking mischief. Outrageous that Europe's leaders would sanction such a fucking move as to accept Ukraine's side of that, to turn that country into a sack of shit. That's worst war crime of the 21st century. It's not surrendering to Russia, not negotiating terms with them and turning that country into a sack of shit. And I couldn't make sense of it. Unless somebody wanted to deliberately start a war, and then it makes perfect sense. Let's deliberately start a war with our ideological enemy. The boogeyman we've created, isn't it just handy for us to move forward with all our different things, what we want to do in the future and get away with? And I think the first rug, or the first one pulled, because of us, you know, us conspiracy theorists have been saying, you watch these fucking people. The fundamental of it, to my mind, was one day you wake up and your electricity be off and never come back on, and that would be the way that the civilized world would end as far as any of us would be concerned. And it'd be, yeah, that was always what they had. That's the locus of control. And they've got both hands on it now. They can justify really fucking squeezing us, can't they? Justify it. They can say, oh, well, we've got this heroic, patriotic, great war for democracy we're fighting in another country to benefit criminals and gangsters and people who've done deals. And it might be the choice of the matter be we expose the sort of global business elite having precipitated almost the looting of energy markets around the world. So we either come down hard on that and throw those guys in prison and expose who they've paid money to. In essence, take on the corruption of the energy cartels. Or we go to war with Russia. To cover for them. Only one decision, isn't there? So you sleepwalk into war with Russia so not to face the repercussions of your own dabbling and actions and the way that you've been making money for the last couple of decades. There's no way out of it, is there? Because the side who would say that they had the moral high ground, West, because they always say they've got it, would act like they have. They're not willing to negotiate with what I would say would be a pragmatic actor in Putin. Pragmatic, but not soft. They've decided that he can't be negotiated with. How does that end? Well, it doesn't end the world, but it gives a justification for a lot of hardship. And if you want to be that glib, you can say that you're suffering to save the world from the evils of climate change and Putin and racism and sexism and transphobia and homophobia. Why you starve?